They totally set us up, and I could see on Brock's face that he felt so guilty for getting me involved in this. When they opened that door, I was legitimately terrified. We were standing right across the room from the most evil people in Las Vegas. I'd never been to Las Vegas before. I was only like 22 years old. But a good friend of mine who grew up in Nevada invited me to meet him out in Vegas and show me around. I know I had turned 21 the year prior, but since I had never been before, he was treating it like one of those mentorship friendships. Like, hey, you don't know how to deal with Las Vegas? I'll show you a good time. So I had no idea what to expect. I just met him there. I stayed where he told me to stay, and I met him in the lobby that he told me to meet him at. So again, I'm 22 years old, standing in this beautiful, luxurious lobby, and I see my friend walking up who I hadn't seen in a few months at the time. He's got a big smile on his face, and it's that energy of, I'm so excited to see you, we're about to have a great weekend. And like that light smirk, like he might have a surprise for me. And right away, we're hitting it off, we're having a good time, we're walking around these massive, beautiful casino/hotels. I actually had no idea what Vegas really was before I got there. And if you've never been to Vegas, it is so much more grand than you think it's gonna be. I didn't realize just how much it was an adult playground. Super high ceilings, all the games that you could imagine playing, some of the highest quality food in the world, and it never goes to sleep. You're indoors pretty much all the time. You have no idea what time it is. The air in there is crisp, like they're pumping oxygen in to keep you awake. And it has this feel of pure adult fun that you can't find anywhere else. I'm gonna cut right to the chase. I was super broke. I didn't have money to gamble. I was there for a good time. To explore the city, to see other people gamble, to see them celebrate, to see them mourn losing their house on one poker hand, to wander these beautiful hotels, to try this awesome food, to stay in a fancy hotel room. But I didn't have money to throw around. But Brock had a much more consistent job at the time, and he definitely brought some gambling money. I didn't even know how to gamble. Like, I know what slots are. Like, I could walk up, put $1 in, click a button, see if I win or lose. But as far as the card games, poker, Texas Hold'em, Baccarat, nobody had ever taught me these things, especially some of these other tables like the roulettes, these more complicated chance games. Like, I really didn't know how any of them operated. If anything, I felt awkward walking up to the table, even if Brock threw me a $5 bill or a $10 bill to buy in. I didn't even know the etiquette. So I was honest with him. I'm like, dude, I'm totally cool with watching you do it and celebrating with you if you're winning. So I'm fully letting him lead the charge. I don't want to interact with any of this. I'm cool being a mascot, a cheerleader for him, or consoling him if he's losing. So we get to this one beautiful casino, and I've already told Brock that I don't want to gamble, and I'm like, you can. And Brock gave me that little smirk that I mentioned before and said, oh, I don't gamble, as he's walking up to one of these tables. But I could tell there was some type of inside joke here that I wasn't picking up on. And he sits down at the table and he buys in and he plays one hand, and I don't really know what's happening, but he clearly has more chips at the end of it than he did at the beginning. He won the round. He has no excitement whatsoever. He gets up, grabs his chips, looks at me with that little smirk, and we start walking again. And I'm like, dude, break it down to me what happened. And he goes, I don't gamble. And then I start to get the bit. Like, he's leaning into like, I only win. And I'm like, that's a funny bit to walk into Vegas and be like, I don't gamble, I just win money. So I'm totally on board with it. He walks up to a slot machine, slips in $1, gives me a smirk, presses the button, and he wins. Nothing crazy, a couple bucks, gets the ticket, goes and cashes it in, gets a couple more chips. He's 2 for 2. We walk up to a completely different table. I could tell it's a slightly different card game, maybe a different buy-in, and I watch this man win again. No reaction. No reaction whatsoever, as composed as you possibly can be. Only plays a hand. And now I'm kind of like poking at him. I'm like, oh, you're good at this. Like, you know how to do this. It's clear you know Vegas, brother. And he's giving me that look of, I don't gamble, with no explanation further. But after that third game, he's like, we got to go to a different casino. And I'm not arguing. I'm trying to see as much of Vegas as I possibly can. And a lot of these casinos are connected. You don't have to go outside for most of them. Like, sometimes there's like 3 different ones that maybe you have to go across a bridge and then you get into another one. But we just walk about 10 minutes and we're in a completely different hotel/casino. And he starts doing it again. He's walking up to a table. I could see like the numbers, like this one is a slightly higher stakes one, and he wins a couple hands. And at this point, I'm like, Brock, how much money have you won? And he's like, nothing crazy, dude. We have like $750 to play with. And I'm like, how much did you start with? And he's like, $75. So this dude has already 10x'd his money, and I'm getting excited. I've never been around gambling. That's exciting to me. The idea of $75 turning into $750, I'm like, dude, stop playing. Like, stop while you're up. Like, and I'm like encouraging him, like, dude, that's enough. Like, I'm having fun. You don't have to risk any more of your money for like my entertainment. Like, I'm happy you got there. Let's just go like spend it on food or like whatever. Let's have a good time. And he's like, I'm not risking anything. And walks up to one of those tables where you like throw the thing in the spinning thing that has like the red and black. I think that's called roulette. And I have no idea what this game is, but the man wins. I'm not gonna waste your time explaining the entire process. He's just winning. And he does the same routine through this casino. 3 or 4 games, and now he's like, I gotta show you this next one. And each casino is getting cooler and nicer. Like, it's not like I'm getting concerned or suspicious. I'm like riding a high of the first Vegas trip I've ever been on with a buddy who's on a massive winning streak, completely naive. And I'm trying to ask him, how are you doing this, dude? Like, how did you get so good at this? Thinking that there's a skill going on here. And he's just giving me a slow drip of information, like vague, cryptic responses when I'm asking very specific questions. And again, I'm not getting suspicious. I think it's part of a funny bit that my friend is doing. And he's leaning into like this ridiculous win streak, acting like he's some type of psychic. So it's all entertaining to me. But his explanation is, I'm not playing the same game that they're playing. I'm telling you, dude, I'm not gambling. And it gets to the point where he has turned $75 to around $4 grand. Money that I've never seen before in my life. And it's not like he has the cash in his hand. Obviously, it's like chips and stuff. But it's crazy to me that he has made that amount of money while we're just having a good time going from table to table. And I start leaning into the bit a little bit, like, I don't gamble either. I could do this. And he has all of his chips on the table. He plays a hand, he wins. And it's this really key moment where I'm like, dude, really, how are you doing it? Like, I don't want to lose all your money, but how are you doing it? So I could take a turn. And this cocky dude just looks at me in the face and goes, I just can't lose, man. I don't even care about this money. I'm probably gonna give it out after this. And I'm like, oh, we're playing that game. You can't lose, huh? And you don't care about this money, huh? So he gives me his seat at this table. I don't even really know what I'm doing. And I made an honest mistake. He has multiple chips down. And I saw like when he was like putting money in, he would put like 3 of a chip in. He didn't teach me anything. And I put 3 of the wrong chip in. I didn't know. And apparently, once it's in place, that's your bet. I don't even know what game we were playing. I'm being completely serious with you. I don't have the details of this game or this interaction. I just know I made a mistake of how much of his money that I bet. And I look back at him and I could tell he did care about this money. And he's like, oh my God, dude, like, what are you doing? And I don't even know the rules. And in that moment, it wasn't very fun anymore. And we switched out. It was his money. We couldn't take the bet away, but we were allowed to switch because I really didn't know how to play. I was just gonna look back at him and let him point. But because the stakes were risen, he was like, oh, let me sit down, because this was like a lot of his money on the line. And he looked really, really stressed about it as he was playing. But I'm sitting there and I feel so bad because I put him in this bad situation, and then he wins. And it's like a lot of money, because I guess I put in like $3,000 when he was just trying to put in like 30. But he went from $4,000 to like $7,000. So I'm like, oh my God, it paid off. Like, I'm sorry, but at least something bad didn't happen. I won't do that again. I'll continue to take the back seat for the rest of the day. And I think we're gonna celebrate because this is the biggest win of the day. But Brock does not look happy about the win. And he gets up off the table, he takes his chips, and he's like, we have to go. We have to go to a different casino right now. And obviously I'm really confused. Like, I almost want to like jump up and down. This is so much money. He is not happy about it. And we're walking away from this table and I feel his energy, so I'm apologizing. I'm like, I didn't mean to do that, dude. Like, but come on, we won, it's all good. He's like, you have no idea what you just did. We have to get out of here right now. And we're walking through this casino. Everything looks completely normal to me, but now my friend seems to be on absolute high alert. His head is whipping around. He's like looking around corners before we turn, and he's not giving me any context. He's just walking and I'm doing my best to keep up with him. If you've never been to Vegas, that place is like a maze. If you're not familiar with the casino or the hotel that you're in, you could walk around in circles for a little bit. The signage is very confusing and every hotel has a different theme. There's so much stimulus going on that it's very easy to get turned around, but he seemed like he knew where he was going. I had no idea, so the only thing I could do was follow him. But we leave that casino, we get out, we get into another casino, and his energy doesn't shift at all. We get to this area that's like a middle ground between like casinos, shopping malls, and food court. And he turns towards me and he's like, we actually have to go. We have to go right now. And I'm like, okay, where are we going? Like, we could leave. Are we gonna go back to your place? Do you wanna go back to my hotel room? I have no idea what's happening. He's like, I think we should leave Vegas. And I look at him, I'm like, what are you talking about? And I start to get suspicious of him. I'm like, were you cheating? That's the first thing that comes to my head. Like, were you cheating? Are we in trouble right now? And he's like, no, I wasn't cheating. But they don't like when you win that much. There's a reason I was doing small game by small game and we were moving from casino to casino. You're not supposed to win like that. They noticed that. And I'm like, okay, so like, what do we do? Let's leave. Like, we can't stay at our hotel, but you have quite a bit of money. Like, we could get a spot somewhere else. And he goes, I think we should split up. I don't think you should be with me. And I'm like, what are we in? Are we in Born Identity right now? And now I'm looking around all paranoid and confused. Everybody around me is having a fantastic time. We're in a beautiful place. I don't see what he's seeing. I'm not picking up the vibes that he's picking up. But again, I'm not the one with that much money in my pocket. So I'm like, okay, dude, if you want to leave, you can leave. I'll go back to my hotel room till everything cools down. If you gotta go, that's fine, but I don't live near here. I flew here to see you, and I paid for this hotel. I have nowhere else to stay. So if you get another spot and you want me to meet you thereafter, let me know. And Brock just goes, okay. And he walks away very quickly in a different direction. He was going towards the food courts and he just left me in that little middle point. And I'm like, oh, now I'm alone in Vegas, never been here before, feeling a little bit sketched out, and my friend just left. So I'm like, okay, whatever, I'll walk towards the shops. And I get into this very luxurious shopping area that has all of these designer stores that have the security guards out front and they open it for you if you seem like you're a legitimate buyer. Otherwise, the store's pretty full right now, so there's a waiting list. But I'm not gonna go into any of these stores. I'm just looking around, watching people spend thousands of dollars on 2 garments. But very quickly, it went from window shopping to feeling that paranoia that Brock was feeling. I don't know if it was something about being alone, but the vibe shifted around me. There were just regular people walking around, but this was a specifically like designer area of the shopping area where there is less foot traffic. And for some reason, I felt like all eyes were on me. Like the people in the stores were looking out at me. Anybody walking by that looked like an employee was looking at me. The security guards were looking me up and down like I was gonna come in and rob the place. And I started to get that feeling on the back of my neck, like, is somebody walking behind me? I'm hearing heavy footsteps, and I feel a little guilty. Like maybe I did do something wrong. Maybe Brock wasn't overreacting. Was I just a part of something super sketchy? And I'm trying to calm myself down, like, so I don't psych myself into this paranoia cycle. But I couldn't shake it because the employees were 100% looking at me. And there's other shoppers, but everywhere my eyes wandered, eyes were looking back at me. And then I saw this one door that was clearly like an employees only door, like 10 foot tall, clearly locked. The public's not allowed in there. It swings open and a bunch of dudes in suits come out of it. And they're whipping their heads around looking like they're looking for somebody. And instinctively, I take a right turn and I go into a shop. I'd like to shop here, sir. Please let me in. And this is a Gucci store. I'm like, yeah, I'm super serious. I'm gonna buy something. And he lets me in and the store is almost completely empty. But this was also a new experience. When you go into one of those designer stores, the people don't just greet you and say like, oh, hey, how are you? They walk up and they introduce themselves. And they're like, what are you looking to purchase today? Let me bring you to it. I'll size you and we'll get you checked out. It's a completely different shopping experience, but there was something about this very nice Italian man welcoming me into the store and bringing me into the back, and there's nobody else in there. That was a bit comforting because I didn't feel like those security guards would march in there and look for me while I was inside of an establishment getting escorted around. It felt quiet, exclusive, and safe. So I just lied to the man. I'm like, I'm looking for a belt. I'm really lacking a belt in my wardrobe. And he brings me to the back where there's the belts and the mirrors and some of the garments in the fitting rooms. And you can't see all the way back there from the hallway. So I'm like, this is perfect. And he's like, which one do you like? And I point at like 2 or 3 because I'm trying to get into the dressing room for a little bit. Let me close those curtains. Let's let those guys leave. I'm trying to buy some time in here. And he's like, okay, I'll get those 3 from the back. And what size are you? I tell him my waist size. And he's like, yep, I'll be right back. And I'm sitting there on that seat waiting for him to come back in this quiet Gucci store. And after about 3 to 5 minutes, I realize just how quiet it is in there. And I'm looking around and I don't see any other shoppers. So I stand up and I go over towards the dressing area, hoping he's gonna come back out soon. And I didn't hear anybody enter the room, but I heard somebody's voice. Don't make a scene. Come with us right now. Very calm, but very direct. And I turn around and I see 3 men wearing the suits, the same men that came out of that door in the hallway. And they're standing right in front of me, in between me and the exit, and they're not repeating themselves. The instructions were don't make a scene and come with us right now. And I realized at that moment that the Italian man at the Gucci store wasn't coming back with my belts that I wasn't gonna buy. And I just nod my head okay. And I accept at that moment that my friend Brock was cheating or doing something wrong. But the reality is that I was not a part of it, and I wasn't going to get in trouble for it. And I didn't think Brock wanted me to get in trouble for it. So we were going to sort this out. It wasn't an amount of money that was so serious either. It's not like he was winning $700,000. It was a couple thousand that I know that he'll give back. I'll clear my name and I'll be out of here. Hopefully I can still have a fun weekend. And I'm like, wherever you guys want me to go. And I'm thinking they're going to walk me out of the front of the store. But they go in through the same door that the Italian man went through. And they take me through the back of the Gucci store, like where they have all of their inventory, to a back hallway that was completely employees only. It was very much like those hallways of those factory warehouse buildings. Everything is just a light gray beige, big wide hallways so you could bring forklifts through, and every store has one of those garage openings. But it's very industrialized, nothing like the lobbies or the hallways of the actual casinos and hotels that are luxurious and beautiful. It was a stark contrast. I just went from a beautiful designer store into an industrialized hallway, and they're walking me down it, 2 of them in front of me, 1 of them behind me. They know exactly where they're going, and I can't believe where I am. I was just in a gorgeous place, and now I'm getting walked to potentially an interrogation in the back hallways of Vegas. We walk for about 10 minutes until we get to this elevator that seems to bring us up to the top floor of whatever building this was in. I didn't even know what hotel casino I was in at that point. We had been to so many, I'd never been there before. But I could see that we're on like the 57th floor or something like that. I got lightheaded on the way up because the elevator was so fast. And we're clearly in a section that must be some level of like a private section or a penthouse section, because this area of the hotel did not look like the place I was staying. The elevator opens and there's only 3 doors. So it must be just 3 penthouses. They open it up, we walk in. It is the most beautiful hotel penthouse I've ever seen in my life, overlooking the Las Vegas Strip. And there's a group of men sitting at a table, all dressed to the T's. These are businessmen through and through. And I walk in with clearly who is their security. And as I enter the main room, they're all looking at me with some like light grins on their faces. Like they're not super angry to see me. And then once I actually enter the room, I see that Brock is already in the room. And there's actually 2 security guards holding one of his arms each behind his back. And he looks at me super guilty, like he is really sad to see me there. And it's not like he was really beat up. It's not like I walked into this mob interrogation scene where my friend is all bloodied up. It was way calmer than that. There was an undertone of something really freaky going on, but it's not like this, oh my God, they're beating the answers out of him. It was nothing like that. They were definitely restraining him, and his shirt looked like somebody had a grip of his collar, like his collar was distended and curled, and part of his shirt was ripped, like somebody really got a hold of his shirt. But other than that, his face was clean. He was okay. He didn't look hurt. And I look at him, he doesn't say anything, and I look over at the guy sitting behind the table, and I see that there's clearly one ringleader. You know, you can assess a group of men, you go, well, he's in charge, based on where he's sitting, the way he's looking at me, the way they're all looking at him to speak, because they're not speaking up. They're like, he's going to be the one that talks. And that man was evil. I don't know how to explain it to you, other than I literally saw it in his face. He was an older gentleman, probably 60-something. Gray hair slicked back. It looked like he took care of himself, but he had the wrinkles as if he lived in a desert for like 30 years. He had an unnatural tan. He looked fit. He looked great for his age. And he had a big smile on his face, this grin. Because in hindsight, it wasn't a smile. It was a grin. It was as if he knew something that nobody else knew. But he wasn't happy. There was nothing happy about his grin. It was conniving. And all the wrinkles on his face, when he would grin, it was so contorted. It almost looked like he was wearing like a leather mask of somebody who was pretending to be happy, but there was like a skull figure in there that was actually ruminating evil. Damn near a skin suit on this guy. And he gestures to something on the table. It looks like a little makeshift necklace. And I kind of recognized it. I saw it on the back of Brock's neck. I didn't see what like the bottom of it was, but when I was looking at it, I'm like, that literally looks like a handmade necklace. It's not even metal. It's like made of leather and like linen. And I knew that Brock was Native American, like those were his roots. So I'm like, that to me looks like a Native American necklace that maybe his grandma made for him. And this man with this grin on his face gestures towards that on the table, and he goes, and do you have anything for us? With a conniving grin. And I look at Brock like, what is he talking about? And Brock speaks up. And he says this, which didn't make sense to me. He goes, he doesn't know how to count. And I'm really confused, and I look back at the man, and I'm trying to gauge if he knew what Brock meant. I'm looking back at Brock, I'm like, I don't know how to count. Yeah, I do. But clearly that was code for something. And I'm not the stupidest guy in the world. I'm like, is he talking about counting cards? Were you counting cards? Were you cheating today and pretending to be cool and suave, and now we're actually in trouble? You didn't tell me that? So I'm assuming Brock was counting cards and he thought it was cool and he was showing off. But the dude with the grin looks back at me and he goes, is there anything that he told you? And I put my hands up because I'm not trying to like snitch on him or anything like that. And I know I'm not going to say anything that's fully incriminating him. And I go, this was my first time here. He told me he didn't even gamble. And that man's grin went from weird to orbital to orbital. Like that's exactly what he wanted to hear. And he looks back at Brock and he goes, so you don't even gamble, huh? And Brock's eyes shoot to the floor, like his head literally drops down, like he's fully defeated. They're still holding him up by his arms, but he exhales like I punched him in the stomach. And now the whole group of suited men around this guy are like cackling as if they figured out what was going on. And I'm trying to make eye contact with Brock, like, what is happening? That's what you told me. Why would you bring me into a situation like this? I'm genuinely frustrated with him. Why am I up here being accused of stuff by clearly people that are in a high position of power at this casino, and you're acting like I just gut punched you with a sentence that you were saying to me that was cryptic and vague? And the man stands up and walks over to Brock. Brock picks his head up and he's like looking directly in this guy's face, and I see Brock is really scared of him. Not like nervous about the situation, but scared of this man. And my adrenaline is through the roof. I'm like, am I about to witness like a casino mob hit on my friend? I'm genuinely thinking, this is the Vegas stuff that you see in movies. Are they gonna throw him off the top balcony? Or hang him off the balcony and demand answers until he admits thoroughly to counting the cards and gives the money back? Like, that's the type of Vegas scenes that I'm thinking of. But all he says to Brock is, let's see how you deal with the real games without your little trick. And he gestures towards the people that are holding his arms. And now I get my arms grabbed. Like, what does that mean? But they're walking us in the same direction back to where I came from. But then we take a slight right and there's a secondary elevator that's in this man's room. Like a direct elevator from this penthouse to somewhere else. And now I'm right next to Brock. We're both slightly restrained. It's not like they were like wrenching my arms. They were being gentle. But I know that if I resisted in any way, it was going to become very ungentle very quickly. So I'm just standing next to Brock. I'm like, what is happening? And Brock is apologizing to me. He literally says, I'm so sorry I brought you into this. I don't know what's going to happen. And they push the elevator button. It opens immediately as if it was sitting there waiting for us. They walk us on and they very directly, not aggressively, just say, face the back wall, keep your hands where they are. So we basically put our foreheads on this back wall. We hear them click 2 buttons because now I'm hyper aware. I'm noticing everything. And they're facing towards the elevator door. So we're like back to back. And there's about 4 of them on there with us. And we're going straight down. This elevator is so fast. We were so high up. I'm literally getting dropping feelings in my stomach. But I can't say anything to Brock. I'm trying to like shoot looks at him like, are we gonna try to fight our way out of this? What is happening? Where are they taking us? And the elevator stops. And I start to turn around a little bit, and I hear some normal noises as the elevator opens. But the men that are with us, one of them leans back towards us and says, keep your head on the wall, this isn't your stop. So we're like, okay, we're not gonna be able to get off this floor. There's 4 of them. And we stay completely still, and the elevator door closes, and it plummets again. Man, how high were we? We're standing there, and we hear the elevator door open again. But this time I don't try to look back. I'm not trying to piss these dudes off. I'm slightly looking towards Brock, but we don't hear the regular commotion of like a regular hallway behind us. And we're standing there for about 2 minutes until I have no choice but to like actually try to peek. And I think I'm gonna get hit because I'm not listening to the last thing that they said, like look back at the back wall of the elevator. But when I peek over my shoulder, all of the men got off the elevator on the last stop. Nobody was in the elevator with us. So I immediately put my hands at my sides, hit Brock, and I turn around. Like, dude, they're not here. So I'm thinking they put us on this elevator after they roughed Brock up, they took the money back, and they're like, get out of our hotel. But I look what's outside of this elevator, this beautiful luxury elevator, like a penthouse gold engraved elevator. And we're looking down a dark gray graffiti filled, seemingly to be a sewage tunnel that goes on until it's completely pitch black. That's what this luxury elevator opened up into. It wasn't a laundry area, it wasn't a basement. It was legitimately a tunnel. The first thing that I think about doing, I click close doors because I'm gonna click lobby. I don't want to get out at the tunnel. I don't like what I'm seeing, and I'm repeatedly clicking close doors. They're not budging. I look at Brock and he says, we have to get off. March is National Sleep Awareness Month, which is why I'm so excited to be partnered with Helix Sleep. And honestly, the timing couldn't be better because this is something that I actually felt the difference from. Did you know that sleep deprivation raises the risk for obesity, depression, and heart disease? Meanwhile, quality sleep improves memory, emotional regulation, and keeps your immune system strong. I knew how much sleep mattered, but I didn't realize how much my mattress was working against me. I've been waking up stiff with a tight lower back and misaligned shoulders. I thought it was just wear and tear from living life. Turns out it was my mattress working against my spinal alignment while I slept. On top of that, I wasn't getting any deep sleep. I was getting interrupted sleep every single night for years. And the frustrating part is that I didn't even know how bad it had really gotten. You just adapt to it. You start to think that this is what waking up feels like. There's nothing you could do about it. That grogginess and stiffness is just a part of getting older. That's what I thought. But it's not. It's a mattress problem. And it totally has a solution. Helix has this sleep quiz on their website. It takes about 2 minutes and it matches you to the exact mattress that matches your body type and sleep style. I went through it, I got matched with the Helix Midnight Lux, and honestly I noticed the difference almost immediately. My back pain is significantly reduced and I finally sleep through the night without waking up. And when your sleep is actually working, everything is working better. My mood has improved, my focus is clear, and the difference in my day-to-day is genuinely something that I didn't expect. What I didn't expect was how much better I'd feel in general. Like, it wasn't just sleep, it was everything. The energy, the patience, the clarity, it all traces back to one thing. And that thing is what you're sleeping on every night. What I love most about Helix is that they stand behind it completely. They have a 120-night sleep trial, seamless returns and exchanges, and a lifetime warranty on every mattress. They want you to get it right. And that 120-night trial is real. It's 4 months to sleep on it, to live with it, and decide for yourself. If it's not the one, they'll make it right for you. And that kind of confidence in their product is why I feel so good recommending it to you. Thank you, Helix Sleep, for sponsoring. Visit helixsleep.com/DougieCorrado to take advantage of their Sleep Awareness Month exclusive offer and get 20% off site-wide. I have so many questions going through my head that I don't really know where to start. Obviously, looking out of this elevator down this tunnel should be priority number one, but because of what happened upstairs, I have to turn towards Brock and ask him something that's pretty off topic for where we're standing right now. And the only thing that I could come up with was, what happened up there? And we're still standing in this elevator because the prospect of stepping out of it into whatever is outside of it is absolutely horrifying. So we make an unspoken agreement to have this conversation right here where there's still light. And Brock takes a deep breath and he says, I don't know if this is going to make sense to you, and I don't even know how true it is. I was joking, or at least I was like half joking about that I don't gamble. Whenever I do it, I'm always kind of expecting to lose. But that necklace that they took off me upstairs, I wear that on purpose when I come to Vegas. And I'm looking at him so confused because he's being genuine. Like, I could tell, like, he's confessing, like, I was half kidding, but I was intentionally wearing that necklace. So I'm like, what was it? Like, why did they take it from you? And also, how did they know what it was? And he goes, dude, it's just a medicine bag. Like, way back in the day, my family lived in this area, and I think technically my family sold this land to the people that had eventually built Vegas. But from our stories that were passed down, this area is a legitimate convergence point. And my people would always wear these medicine bags if we would travel over the land. It is not because it's an inherently bad area. There's just a lot of energy here, good and bad. So we would wear those medicine bags to stay neutral so we would be able to cross the land unharmed. That's what my parents and my great-grandparents told me. But all of us kind of felt like it was a half joke. So I wear the medicine bag here, and the idea is that that keeps away the good and the bad energy. And if you stay neutral, you're technically not gambling. That's really all I know. But it seemed like they knew too. And at that same moment where I was trying to comprehend this like family history and the historical history of Vegas and good energies and bad energies, we hear something in the tunnel. And it's somebody walking towards us, and we could see a figure, like really slowly making their way towards us. And it's not like this elevator opened into like only one tunnel. It opened to a large tunnel to the left and a small tunnel to the right. So it was kind of like at a corner. So we could totally step out of the elevator, go the opposite direction of whoever's coming. But we look at each other and both of us decide to stay in the elevator because we're not going to walk in their direction. We're not going to walk in the other direction where we don't know where it goes. We're going to wait until whoever this is gets close enough to us where the light from the elevator illuminates them. And we're standing there awkwardly, but also scared and defensive, in this luxurious elevator as this person slowly makes their way, like stepping in puddles because the ground is like wet with sewage. And finally, the light starts illuminating the front of their body, and we're for a moment relieved because this man is dressed to the T's. So I have relief initially because it's not like some crazy tunnel dude, but then a feeling of worry, like, is this one of the security guards gonna force us off of the elevator because he's dressed so nicely? But then it takes an even weirder turn. He's dressed immaculately, head to toe. Dude looks like he's wearing $1 million, but it's also kind of like worn down, like he's been walking down here for a really long time. And his face and his expression doesn't match his outfit. I don't know all this designer stuff, but it looked like he's wearing a custom fit Tom Ford suit. It's like glistening, like it almost has glitter on it. His shoes look like they're made out of fresh alligator or crocodile. He's got necklaces on, jewelry, glasses that look like they're probably $10,000. Like he is a high roller, but he looks like he's been down here for days. And he's dragging his feet through this sewage water, and he's looking at us longingly like he needs help. It was such a scary contrast because the materialistic things that he had on didn't match the expression on his face. He looked like he had become completely dehumanized and void of emotion. Like he was wandering around in full shock. Like he looked traumatized. That's the best way I could explain it. And he walks directly up to us because he's not threatening. We're not like saying like, hey, stand back. We're like a little concerned. And he drops to his knees into like the little puddle that's outside of this elevator, as if he doesn't care about his clearly expensive pants and shoes. And he's barely getting out the word water. He's just saying like water as if he needs water. And I have a half crushed water bottle in my back pocket that's about half full, just like a Kirkland water bottle. I was walking around with it from my hotel room all day, and I pulled this water bottle out of my back pocket, and his eyes light up and he's like reaching for it. He's like, please, can I have some water? And my initial instinct is to just give him the water. He looks like he needs help. But I guess he reads me as if I'm not gonna give it to him. And he starts going for his own watch. And he's taking off his watch, takes it off, holds it in both hands. And he's like, I'll give you this for the water. Like, please, just give me the water. And I look at the face of the watch and I just see it says Richard Mille. And I've heard that before just in general. So I know this is an incredibly expensive watch. And he's just holding it out to me. And I feel so bad. I'm absolutely not accepting your incredibly expensive watch in exchange for half of a water bottle. Of course I'm just gonna give it to you. This thing is 50 cents. But Brock puts his hand on my arm because I'm telling him like, no, I don't need that. And Brock says, a sip for an answer. And I look at Brock, I'm like, what are you talking about? The dude needs help. And he looks at me dead serious. He goes, and we need answers. We're gonna give it to him anyway. Let's just get something from him. So I'm like, okay, like we're gonna give it to him though, right? That's like the vibe I'm giving back to him. He's like, of course. But then he asks the man a question because he's nodding yes, like he agrees. A sip for an answer. And the first question is, where are we? Very obvious one. And the man replies, the casino. And Brock goes, the casino's upstairs. What's down here? And the man says, the real casino. He's dead serious. And I look at Brock and he kind of nods. I give him a sip of water. We give him a little bit of water and he's like, oh yes, waiting for question number 2. And Brock asks him, how do we get out of here? The dude's not holding anything back. He immediately answers, you gotta win some games. And that seemed like enough of an answer. We gave him a second sip. And I have no idea what the next line of questioning is, but I didn't expect it to be what Brock said. I don't know what he saw in this man that caused him to ask this question, but he asked, are you trying to leave? Are you trying to get out? And the man said, absolutely not. He wasn't trying to escape. He didn't want to leave, and I wasn't expecting that whatsoever. So I give him the third sip, and the water runs out. I told you there was barely anything left in here. And once the water was gone, he had no interest in us whatsoever. He got back to his feet, and he started walking slowly in the direction of the small tunnel. But in that moment, I knew that we were in a seriously bad situation. Not because of the way it looked, not because of the state that he was in, not because of the questions that Brock asked him, but because he was willing to trade a Richard Mille for half a water bottle. Even though he wasn't trying to get out, we could tell that he had been down here so long and deprived of food and water that the $100,000 watch on his wrist was equally as valuable as half a water bottle in that moment to him. And I started regretting giving it to him, because if it's that valuable, how valuable is it going to be to us? Did we just lose our most valuable item, which was a little bit of hydration? And I asked Brock that, and he goes, I thought about that, but I think the answers are going to do us better. And I kind of agreed. At least we had some context as to what this place was. And it was nice to know that at least somebody who was actively at the casino was down here, because it didn't look like a place where regular Vegas goers would be. This looked like a sewage system. But seeing him here with his suit and he was dressed up, no matter what is happening down here, at least it was a quote-unquote regular person. So I asked Brock as we make our first steps out of the elevator, what do you think he meant that this is the real casino? And Brock replied, just keep your eyes peeled for some games, because that's all we knew. There's regular people down here. That man was not a victim. He was voluntarily down here. And there's games that we could win to get out. And that gave us the courage to step off that elevator, because at least we knew that there was an option. He just wanted to stay down here, but he didn't make it seem like you couldn't get out if you wanted to. So we started moving in the direction which he came, because if he was coming from that direction, there must be games in that direction. And we go straight for about 5 minutes. We hit an area where it splits up into 3 different directions. We have no choice but to choose a random one. We try to remember where we came from, so at least if we wanted to go back to that elevator, maybe we could. But we choose the center tunnel and we continue going. And eventually, 10 minutes later, that center tunnel took a hard right turn. And at the end of what seemed to be more like a hallway than a tunnel, we saw what looked like maybe it could be a game, because we saw the corner of a table in what seemed to be a dead end of this like concrete tunnel. It looked like a service area, like there were smaller pipes near there, and I'm hoping maybe there's a ladder out to the surface, because workers have to come down to specific areas to work on specific things. And as we get closer to it, the lights are flickering, it's very faint, there's moisture on the ground, it's disgusting, it still smells like sewage. And we see another person sitting at a table. And then we get even closer and we see a second person. The first one was a woman wearing a dress, another person voluntarily down here. But she looks a little disoriented and she's touching her eyes, just kind of like looking around longingly. And then there's a man sitting next to her, and he's not moving at all, hands at his sides. They're just on these little stools in front of this table. And then we fully enter the room. And in the corner, we see a games table, kind of similar to the ones that we were seeing upstairs in the casino. And from the doorway that we walked in, almost like a jail cell door closed behind us, as if we just walked into this room and we were not allowed to leave. Directly in front of us, there's another like sliding jail cell door that goes into a different tunnel, but that one's closed as well. So now we're fully in this room. We could fully see the 2 players, we could see the table, and we could see the dealer. The only way I could explain the appearance of this dealer was that it looked like a Chuck E. Cheese animatronic, disfigured nightmare machine. It moved like one of those Chuck E. Cheese animatronics, very robotic, very weird, like its arms and its chest and its head are like almost like plated on it. But this thing's face didn't look like Chuck E. Cheese. It wasn't a nice friendly mouse. Its head shape was almost like a disfigured pink skin-like marshmallow. And its eyes and nose and mouth and ears looked like they were sewed shut, like it was meant to be scary. It was like a haunted house action figure. And we're looking at this thing and it's moving like an animatronic, but like at some points, like, is there a person in there? Like it would have some movements that were like almost human, but then it would go back to its like a weird robotic movement. And the 2 people that are sitting at this table with it are not acknowledging us whatsoever. We're standing there awkwardly and this animatronic machine is spinning this large coin in between its fingers, like one large coin that has a heads and a tails on it. And that made me think it was a machine, because the way it was doing it, it was too good at it. So I was like, oh, that's attached to its hand. And right above it, scribbled in chalk on a concrete wall, were the rules. There was only 2 rules. You have to play at least once, and you could only leave after a win. We're like, okay, that's simple enough. So Brock and I awkwardly walk up to this table in front of this horribly disfigured animatronic, and we sit on these stools next to these 2 other players. And I'm trying to get a gauge of them. They don't look like they're like freaked out or in pain or hurt or anything of that nature. They just look disoriented. And then we look towards the table, and like I mentioned earlier, I don't know how to play any of these games. But when I put my hands on the table, I feel something weird with my fingers. I look at Brock and I say, is that Braille? And he nods his head yes, but you could also see around the Braille, there's a heads and a tails. It's like a big circle. And I'm looking at the symbol and it looks like the same symbol that's on the coin that this animatronic is flipping through its fingers. I'm like, okay, that's considerate. They put Braille on here too. And then I'm looking over at the other players trying to gauge any other context as to what's going on. And they're giving me nothing. And then this animatronic hits the table 3 times, just like very rhythmically with its hand. 1, 2, 3. And we look towards the other players and they're putting their hands over the Braille. and I could see what they pick. They both go to tails, and they tap tails 1, 2, 3, as if that's how you choose heads or tails. Me and Brock are like, okay. We look at each other. They both chose tails, so we tap heads 3 times. I don't know why we bet against them, but we were like, okay, well, they've already been here. Let's just do the other thing, but we definitely have to do the same thing. Because if one of us wins, we both win. We're not going to have one person lose and one person win. We're going to make every single one of these decisions together. Then this animatronic scans from Brock to the girl all the way in the corner, and then the coin stops flipping through its fingers, puts its hand out forward, and flips it really high. And in that moment again, I was like, is there a person in there? The way it flipped the coin was like so human. But then it immediately went back into its mechanical movements, and the coin landed on the table, skipped a couple times, then it fell to tails. So Brock and I lost. And I'm looking at the other two to see their reaction to their win, because I don't know what to expect here. So I'm staring at them, and the man that hadn't moved really since we sat down, he had no reaction to anything. I see him take like a deep breath in, like he's like sniffing through his nose, but it's not making any sounds. It looks like he's snorting, but no sound is coming out of his nose. And I see the girl that's in the corner, her eyes light up and she stares at me, like she's looking directly at me. For the first time since we sat down, she's almost like freaked out about it. She stands up immediately and goes towards the gate that's on the other side of the room. Not the one that we came in, the one that's like clearly the exit. And it opens for her, and she scurries out of the room, and it slams behind her. And just like that, she's gone. But the man that wasn't moving much didn't get up after his win. He's still sitting there. And then he leans towards me, and he like sniffs me. Like just a little like sniff, sniff, sniff. And then he does like a slight smile and a wave, and then goes back to sitting still. So confused. And then I turn towards Brock because he put his hand on my arm and he like gripped it really hard. I whip my head towards him, and he looks like he's screaming. He's almost falling out of his stool. He has both of his hands reaching out on both sides, and it looks like he's yelling, but there's no sound coming out. It looks like he's fake screaming. I've never seen my friend panic so hard. He looked so scared, it didn't even make sense. But then I felt the vibration of the 3 hits on the table, and then I knew exactly what was going on, because I didn't hear them. I felt them, and I noticed that I couldn't hear anything. There was no sound of water dripping. There was no slight beeps. There was no wind. I didn't hear the man snort, and now I don't hear my friend screaming. And Brock is now touching his eyes, and he's like hitting me, and I'm reading his lips, and he's saying, I can't see. And I knew in that moment that I couldn't hear. And I look back at the animatronic, and I see its eyes, and its mouth, and its ears, and its nose completely sewed shut. And I think about how the girl in the corner looked at me like she saw me for the first time after she won. And I knew that we were waging our senses. And then it made sense, the man that was sitting next to me. He could smell me. He won the last round, and he got his sense of smell back. And that's why he greeted me. He knew I was there. But he didn't have any other sense. He's been on a losing streak. And Brock is still freaking out. But this animatronic has already hit the table 3 times. And the man to my right feels the braille, and he hits tails 3 times. So I grab Brock's arms. I put his hand over heads, and I start speaking to him. Choose heads. We have to choose the same one. It's this one right here. Tap it 3 times. And I can't hear myself speak. I'm trying to stay as calm as I can, but at least I can still see. And I see Brock hit heads 3 times, so I hit heads 3 times. The animatronic stops spinning the coin, puts it out, a little too human-like, flips it, and it lands on heads. The sound comes pouring back into my head. I hear Brock exhale. I hear him slap the table. I hear him stand up and start stomping away, almost falling towards that gate that he's expecting to open. I get up as fast as I can. I scurry over to the gate. We're both staring at the animatronic, not knowing if it's going to let us leave, but the rules above its head are telling us that it should, and the gate unlocks. It slides open. We step through it. It slams shut, and we're looking back into that room as the animatronic is waiting for another person to walk through. And that poor man couldn't smell anything again. And he's sitting there with no senses, waiting for the next person to wager against. We didn't have the composure to gather our thoughts and talk about anything. After coming out of an experience like that, the only thing we could think about, after briefly looking at that poor man that was still at the table, was fleeing the area. The idea of something being able to take your senses away and being stuck as a shell of yourself in front of that freaky animatronic, it puts you into fight or flight. Losing your hearing is one thing. Brock was very shaken by his vision going out. And he kept repeating, it was just gone. I just couldn't see. I don't know what I would have done if you weren't there. And I totally felt for him because the hearing was scary. But I couldn't imagine if the lights went out the second the coin hit the table. Like I think I would have thought I died. I would have thought we lost and I'm dead. Or I was in some type of purgatory situation. That's why he flung his arms out and he gripped me. Because of course he's going to. And that's why that girl stood up immediately. She got her sight back. And then I thought, was that the only one that she got back? Like, who's to say that she was able to hear? Who's to say that she was able to smell or taste? Who knows how that game actually operates? It could be totally random. You don't know which one is being taken and you don't know which one is being given back. So the second she got her eyesight, she might have been like, that's enough for me. I'm not going to risk losing that again. And the thought of that is so horrifying. So we're just basically repeating ourselves and babbling about the fear that we just had experienced through that horrible situation, getting as far away from it as we can. And I realize that this area is much different from the area that we came from. And the only way I could explain it is that it felt a little bit more social. It was more of a walk-around area. It more closely mimicked upstairs, like the actual casinos where there's like an elevator here and there. It's still concrete and gray and graffitied in a tunnel system, but there's like an elevator after every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes. And there's some doors here and there, like big brown wooden doors with gold handles. And there's clearly light coming out from under these doors. And I'm not saying that they're everywhere. It's not like we're walking through like a hotel and there's all of these hotel room doors. It's like here and there, you're seeing one every 10 minutes. But you're also hearing people behind these doors as if like there's socializing going on. And there's music being played and there's people laughing. Like it sounds like there's like dinner parties behind these brown doors as we're walking by them. In the first one or two, we kind of looked at each other like, do we knock? Do we see who's down here? But we were able to see other ones in the distance. So we were like, okay, not gonna knock on the first one. Let's just get away from that thing. Like I said, we were still fleeing. And we got to this one area that was pretty open. And we could see down a tunnel to the left, down a hallway in front of us. And there was kind of like a little open clearing that went into like 3 other small tunnels that seemed to go to a different area. So like 40 feet away from us, one of the elevator doors opened. And like 3 people who seem to be in great spirits in suits get out of the elevator and they take a right away from us. They go directly towards one of these brown doors. And one of them scans like a room key. It pops open. We see slightly inside. There's other people in there. They all go in and the door closes behind them. And I look at Brock and I say, it seems like people come down here. Like I think we're okay. These people look normal. It looks like people come down here for some type of private parties. And Brock says, I don't think we're okay. Completely disagreeing with me. So I'm like, okay, what do you think we should do? Because I was thinking about knocking on one of the doors. And he's like, I think we should hide by that elevator, wait for somebody to come down, sneak in it behind them, and see if that one will go up. Or at least wait inside until it gets called up. And then we try to make a run for it. I loved that idea through and through. Because the idea of continuing down these tunnels in all of these different directions, there were so many options, and running into another game like the last one was the last thing I wanted to do. And we just saw people come off of that elevator right there. And clearly there's a party going on 30 feet away through that door. So if we could go near it, maybe we catch somebody leaving, sneak on with them, or somebody comes down, sneak on behind them, somebody calls the elevator up. I'm down with that. So we give each other the nod of agreement and we start making our way towards that particular elevator. And we're thinking like, okay, do we hide around the corner? Do we hide on either side? And we try to make it not weird and fight our way onto it as somebody comes down. But we don't have the time to actually make that decision, because as we are walking up to the elevator to scope the area, the doors open again. And we're right in front of the doors, literally 5 feet in front of them. And they open up and we see a couple. They're like holding hands. They're dressed very nicely. He's in a suit, she's in a dress. But the only thing that was off about them was the paint that they had on their face. The best way to describe it was similar to the Joker's paint from The Dark Knight, like that Heath Ledger Joker, like purposely done messy. They're not trying to look like clowns, but they're doing a theme. And you would think that would be like really unsettling. But they were talking and laughing and like really calm and greeted us like, hey, how you doing? As if they forgot what was on their face. Their energy was totally normal. And we give them like, oh, hey, how are you? Trying our best to act normal, like we weren't just traumatized 2 minutes ago. And they get off the elevator and they start going in the opposite direction as the last group did, like they're going to a different place. And we get onto the elevator as casually as we can. But as this couple is like 3, 4, 5 steps away and we're stepping onto the elevator, the dude looks back at us. And I'm like, oh God, no. And in a very genuinely friendly way, he asks us this: did you guys not get the email? The elevators don't go up. It's a very curious thing to say. Did we not get the email that the elevators don't go up? I instinctively reply, what email? Because that's what I'm curious about. But Brock steps forward. He like hits me on the chest. He goes, I'm the one that got the email. He's my +1. And I look at Brock confused, but I'm not trying to blow his cover because clearly that was intentional. And he steps off of the elevator and I follow him. So I'm like, okay, he's trying to get some information here, but he's also bluffing. At least as far as I know, he's bluffing. And then he follows up by saying, we just can't find the room. And my phone died, I don't have the directions. And Brock must have said the right thing because the dude replied, did you get your email from some random dude's name? I don't even remember it. Let's say it was Jeremy. And Brock goes, that's the one. And he goes, oh, guys, follow me. Don't worry about it. Come with me. I got you. So now we're walking with this nice couple who are so friendly. They seem excited. They seem a little bit buzzed, maybe 2 drinks deep, really riding that high, excited to be down here. And I know at that moment, I'm letting Brock lead the charge on this because the way that he answered was so strategically right that I'm okay with playing the role as the +1. I'm not speaking up again. He knows what he's doing. And the dude that came off the elevator had pulled out his phone, pulled up the email, and he reads directions. And he goes, see, it's left, right, left off of the elevator. And Brock replies without a hitch. He goes, oh, see, I went left, right, off of memory. We were lucky we got back to the elevator. And clearly this man knew something about what was going on down here. And he goes, you were really lucky that you got back to the elevator. You owe us a thank you. You're lucky you found us. You don't want to get lost down here. And we all chuckle together as if like we're all in the know. But clearly this man knows that there's really messed up things down here. But he doesn't know that we had just been through one and we're not supposed to be down here. Or at least we're not down here voluntarily. So we follow his directions, left, right, left, and we get to this area that kind of opens up into 2 different tunnels. But in the middle of these 2 tunnels, there's one of those doors. The light's coming out from under it, and there's clearly a room behind this door. And the man walks up to it, he scans his card, the door pops open, we have no idea what to expect. But we walk into the room with him. And like I said, there's 2 tunnels on either side of this door going in different directions. So this room was shaped very oddly. The door that we walked into was the point, almost like it was a triangle. Imagine the top of the triangle was the door. And then we walk in and the room gets wider the further you walk in. And there's a dinner table right in the middle. There's some appetizers and drinks. There's a bar on either side. And the back wall is like this big black glass wall. It's very fancy in there. So we all walk in, we are the first people there, which I was very excited about because we didn't have to explain to anybody. There weren't people already established in this room that are gonna look at us weird and we're gonna have to start explaining ourselves and pleading for help. We still have these people fooled. There's food here and there's water here. And I know Brock clocked that immediately. We were out of water. We saw how bad that first man with the Richard Mille watch needed it. So we start casually helping ourselves to some drinks. Casually helping ourselves to some food. Since we're doing it, they start doing it. The girl that he's with is having some pastries. She's enjoying the sugary section. We're wandering around this large triangular room that's set for like a dinner party. And the table that's in the middle is set for like 15 people. So we know more people are coming. And the stark contrast of this room was the most unsettling part. The tunnels that we were walking through are horrendous and dark and dingy. And this room felt like upstairs, like above ground. It was fancy Vegas with delicious food, thirst-quenching drinks. These people are dressed fancier than we are. And we know we're operating on borrowed time. We're shoving our face, we're chugging as much as we can. Because we know the second the person that's hosting this shows up, we are kicked out. So we might as well get sustenance while we can. But this very friendly man that brought us here and let us in is talking about this. He's so excited to be there. And he's giving us context without even asking. He's saying things like, man, I've been on this wait list for years. I'm so excited for the games tonight. And Brock replies, right on beat. Yeah, dude, I was on the wait list for years too. I've been so pumped about this. And I thought I was gonna miss it. Thank God you came. And then this dude's demeanor changes. And he replies to Brock. He like breaks the beat of banter that they were on. It's interesting. If you've been waiting to come here for years, why would you break the only rule that they have? And he went from jolly and nice and genuine to subtly contradictory and accusatory. and I think we are fully exposed. I'm freaking out internally, but Brock does not miss a beat. And he chuckles at the guy and he says, I said I waited for a long time on the wait list, not that it was my first time. We like to see if the newbies will dress up on their first time around. And then he like looks him up and down and like gestures towards his makeup as if it's embarrassing that he actually came like this, because he exposed that this was his first time. And Brock used that against him as if he's a veteran and this guy doesn't actually know what this is and what they actually have to do. And it's funny that he dressed up like a clown. And I see that this man immediately got insecure, and his girl looks over like, are you kidding me? Everybody's gonna think that we look like idiots. So it worked. The insecurity is pouring off of them. But then Brock becomes friendly again, because all he was doing was not letting this guy interrogate him and wanted to change the power structure in the room. And this dude immediately goes over to his girl, takes a napkin that is near her plate that she had been using, and he starts wiping his face. And he's like trying to get the face paint that he had clearly put on for this occasion that he's now embarrassed about. And he's like frantically trying to get the makeup off. And the girl had went to the mirror and was kind of doing the same thing and left her food and that plate and that napkin where she was previously. And she's kind of nagging like, I can't believe you made me do this. And then she looks back at him while he's rubbing his face trying to get his off. And I see her expression drop. She goes, babe, where did you get that napkin? She's like, did you pick it up off the table near my plate? Is that my napkin? And I'm thinking like, oh, she mad that he's using her napkin and she's not going to be able to get her makeup off because it's going to be covered in his makeup. But she looks too concerned in her face for that. And then she starts to like half cry and grab his arm and she's like, do you have your EpiPen? And he immediately takes the napkin off of his face and he's like, no, why? And then he looks at the napkin again and she's not able to speak and she's like crying and her lips are like quivering and she's pointing at one of the pastries and like grabbing his arm that has the napkin in it, and she's like pointing like she can't get the words out. And I see he smells the napkin and he drops the napkin right away and he goes, how much was on there? And she goes, I ate the peanut butter pastries and I wiped my hands on it. There was peanut butter on that napkin. And he immediately goes to one of the chairs and sits down. She's hovering over him. They're both panicking because they don't know what's about to happen. And he has makeup on his face, so it's really hard to see if symptoms are occurring. And now we're around him, we're concerned. She's freaking out and she's like touching his pants, all this stuff, like clearly searching for an EpiPen. And then he starts wheezing, and it is happening really, really fast. Brock and I are completely freaked out because we want to help this guy. He's clearly having a major allergic reaction, but we keep darting our eyes towards the door because we're really concerned about more people coming in and blowing our cover. Obviously, that is completely selfish, but in a situation like this, we can't help it. And I see him doing it too, because at any second, somebody could come in. We are potentially in worse trouble than we were in before. But this dude, his throat is closing. I could see the hives where he was rubbing the peanut butter through the makeup that's on his face, and his girl is freaking out. She's in a pure panic, clearly falling into like some level of an anxiety attack, and neither of us know how to deal with it. So we're all hovering over him. We've now moved him to the floor, and he's kind of like falling back. His eyes are really wide, trying to communicate with us, but clearly there's something going on internally where he can't get himself to. And Brock and I are looking at each other panicked. And randomly, his girl whips her head towards us and says this: should we search him or should we search the room? Like looking up at us very clearly, very direct, give us two options. And honestly, this was better than what was happening right before this because we had never dealt with this. I've never dealt with somebody with a peanut allergy. And we look at each other and we both reply at the same time, search him, to see if he has that EpiPen. Because why would it be in the room? It didn't make sense to search the room. It would be on his person. So we're all patting him down, trying to see if there's anything on him that could help with this. And I remember in that moment thinking, like, if I had a peanut allergy, I would carry an EpiPen with me all the time. Why wouldn't you? Especially going to a dinner party. To me, it seems silly. It seems dangerous not to, especially with the way that his body is reacting so quickly. But as we're patting him down, we're checking everything. I'm checking his socks. I'm digging my fingers into his shoes. We're checking every single inch of this guy, and we're not finding anything. And I hear her freaking out. I hear him wheezing. Like he's barely getting air into himself. His face is getting more and more red. The welts are getting bigger. She whips her head towards us again. She says this: should we sit him upright against the wall or should we lay him flat and elevate his legs? She says it clear, says it very direct, and I don't really know the answer. But then logically I think about it and I go, well, sit him upright. There's no point in elevating his legs. Like we're not trying to rush blood to his head. We're trying to get him to be able to breathe. And if you really think about it, that'll like worsen the swelling that's happening in his throat. So having him sit upright is totally the best thing to do. And Brock and I just go upright, upright, upright. And we drag him over to the wall and we have him sit as upright as we possibly can. And we're still hovering over him. We don't know what to do. I'm like trying to check in on him. I'm like holding his arm, I'm just telling him to breathe. And she stands up, paces a little bit, comes back, because I think this dude is about to pass out at any second. And she goes in between me and Brock, grabs both of our shoulders, looks at me first and says, "Should we tilt his head back and sweep his throat?" And then she turns her head towards Brock and says, "Or should we lean him forward and pat him on the back?" And she's in between me and Brock. And me and Brock are looking at each other, completely freaked out. And I don't know if this is just her personality coming out through panic, but it almost seemed like she was interrogating us. But this dude is clearly having a very real allergic reaction. And the answer was to try to clear his throat, because he's not choking, he's having an allergic reaction. So all three of us get around him, we tilt his head back. I don't really know how to do a finger sweep. I don't think Brock does either. But she opens his mouth, and she's just looking at me like, "Do your best." And she's looking at me directly, so I guess it's my job to do it. So I'm sticking my fingers into his mouth, down his throat, trying to press on the swollen walls of his throat to give him some room to breathe. And I could feel how really swollen it is. I'm not a doctor, I've never done this to anybody before, but it was clear. I felt it. And for a brief moment, I felt like I made some space and I heard some air get through. But really quickly after, it just closed again. And I tried to do the same thing I did before, but it wasn't working. I saw the brief relief in his eyes, immediately stopped with panic again. So I pull my fingers out of his mouth and I say, "It's not working anymore," because everybody thought it might work for a second, at least to buy us some time. But he was on his way out, and we see him start to fade, and he's slouching on the wall and starting to lay down on his back. She does it again, and she goes, "Should we do mouth to mouth, or should we pinch his nose and cup air into his mouth?" I didn't even know what doing cupped hands meant, and I look at Brock, he definitely doesn't, but this dude is clearly dying, and we both say, like, mouth to mouth, we need to do mouth to mouth, which means in that situation, "Hey ma'am, do mouth to mouth on your partner." But what she does is circle around him, open his mouth, and look at Brock and say, "I don't know how." Brock leaps into action. He must have been a lifeguard in the past, and he starts hitting mouth to mouth and pushing on his chest and doing his best. I didn't know if he was doing it right, but it looked pretty damn close, and we're not getting any reaction out of this guy. He's fading away, and we're all watching it happen and watching Brock do his absolute best, trying to keep him alive. His eyes are still open. The mouth-to-mouth seems to be working slightly. And she's like, "Keep going, keep going, keep going." But in between him doing it, Brock is speaking and saying, like, "I'm feeling it close further and further, like it's not going to work soon," as he's just kind of keeping this dude alive as he's going. And she stops Brock for a second. She looks at me and looks at him and goes, "Should we keep doing mouth-to-mouth, or should we open up an airway?" And I have no idea what the right answer is. It seems like the only thing keeping this guy alive is what Brock is doing. But Brock replies, "We need to open up an airway, but how?" And she goes, "Airway?" And he goes, yeah, like, what do we do?" And really, really quickly, she pulls out a utensil and a straw, and she cuts this man's neck open, just ever so slightly, and puts a straw into his throat. And immediately air starts flowing. She performed a tracheotomy on him. Like, out of nowhere. It took her like a couple moments. She did it so smoothly and so quickly that after the entire situation, I was like, oh, she has to be trained. That's why she was asking us questions. She has to be trained for situations like this. And she just wanted our cosign for each step that we were taking. Like, she really took the lead in there. And I saw it in the guy's eyes, like he was okay, he was breathing. I was like, oh my God, this girl's like a hero. But I wasn't realizing it as it was happening. It was freaky. And then the man that's laying on the floor, who literally almost just died of a peanut allergy, he starts clapping. It's like a slow clap, and he's smiling. He's got like a grin on his face. And she starts smiling, and she starts clapping, and he starts to sit up. And as he starts to get up and he's standing up with a straw sticking out of the front of his neck, there's slow clapping, and the back wall that was like a big black glass wall goes from completely black, like a tinted window, to completely transparent, and we're able to see through it. And we see a crowd of about 100 people. Half of them are clapping with these two that are standing next to us, and half of them are like angry and handing in money to like makeshift bookies walking around this crowd. They were in like movie theater bleachers watching us through this massive glass wall. Half of them are celebrating, half of them are upset, half of them are being paid out their winnings, and half of them are paying up. And this glass was only transparent for about 5 seconds, so me and Brock were able to look through it and see what was happening. So we were aware of what just happened to us, and every single person in the crowd had a suit on and makeshift clown makeup, exactly like these two people. And we look back towards them, and they slip through like a trick door that looked like a flat wall, but somehow they got it opened, and they backed their way through it and closed it. We didn't even try to run towards them to get out of that room. We watched them slide through it, grinning at us, clapping, and look back at this crowd who just watched that entire situation as if it was pure entertainment. And then that back wall goes black again, and we're not able to see through it whatsoever. We hustle up to that wall and we cup our hands trying to see if we could see through it like that. Nothing. I hear Brock hit it and it feels like it's absolute bulletproof ballistic glass. There's no way we could get through. And we're standing in this silent, luxurious room, realizing that that was a game and that she was orchestrating options to see if we could save him. But what didn't make sense was that it was clearly happening to him. He had a peanut allergy and he did it to himself. And I couldn't help but to think in that moment, if we chose the wrong options, was he okay with dying? And the people in the crowd, were they betting if he was going to live or die? Why would he be okay with that? He was clearly one of them. And then we heard the door that we came in pop open, as if somebody with a remote control hit open, and it was telling us to leave. It opened wide. There was nothing left in the room for us. We walked out, we grabbed a couple drinks on the way out, and we were back into the tunnels, so much more confused than when we entered that room. We were back in the tunnels, both completely in shock, and it felt like the first time we needed to have a real conversation. We had spoken briefly in between these horrible things, but for the most part, we were so overwhelmed with what was going on that it was hard to string together coherent sentences and actually communicate with each other. And I honestly had quite a few questions for Brock, but in a lot of ways, I was still trying to comprehend what we had just witnessed with that transparent glass, that whole wall becoming transparent and seeing all of those people. And the only thing that I could say to him is, what is this place? Because nothing made sense up to this point. And I could see that he was shaking his head and he actually couldn't come up with any answer. So I came up with another question that I thought he could probably answer. And I said, why did you say those things about the wait list? Why did you say that you've been here before? Because my interpretation of it, of what, while it was happening, changed after what happened. And I could tell that Brock took it seriously because he could feel that the trust might be slipping. And he looked at me and he said, dude, I was completely improvising. I had no idea what he was talking about. I took a shot in the dark. I tried to manipulate the situation and I thought I got him. I felt like we were making progress. And I could tell he was being genuine. And I felt the exact same way because in that moment, I interpreted that oh, he's playing him so we could get an opportunity. I'm cool with that. But then Brock continued and he goes, he knew I was lying. He pretended to be embarrassed. He was playing us the whole time. He went along with it to get us in there and humiliate us like that. And I replied to him and I'm like, they were watching us the whole time. And Brock nods his head. He's like, yeah, that was some kind of show. Did you see that they were betting on it? And I was like, yeah, I saw that, makeshift bookies. I saw them collecting money. And Brock looked at me and he said something kind of sad. He said, how long was the glass transparent for? And I was like, I think 10 seconds. And he looked at me funny and he said, it felt like 10 minutes. It felt like I was staring at those people for a really long time. And I related to that in a way. It was shocking seeing that glass go transparent and seeing how many eyeballs were on us after going through such a traumatic situation trying to save that man. And I tell Brock his throat was really closed. Brock was giving him mouth to mouth, but I literally felt the swelling inside of his throat. And he replied, she really cut his neck. He let it get that far. And I'm like, what is wrong with these people? He shakes his head. He's like, I don't even know. And then I ask the same question that he couldn't reply to in the beginning. Brock, what is this place? Because I know he has a level of understanding because of his family, because of that medicine bag, because of the way he was able to manipulate the games upstairs. I know he has more of a hunch than I do. And he answers the best that he can because he knows I need some level of an answer from him. And he says, I think what goes on down here fuels what goes on upstairs. And I don't think the slot machines are enough for these people anymore. And he pauses for a second, solidifying that answer, and then he kind of goes into game planning. And he says, I don't think we should play any games anymore. I think we should just try to take the long way out. I know if we keep walking, we'll eventually get to an exit on the outskirts of the city. And I take that moment to remind him that we definitely didn't mean to play that last game. They tricked us into that. And it didn't seem like we were going to be able to get out of that room unless we played that first game. And he acknowledges that. He nods his head and he goes, if we see anything in the distance, if we notice any game, we go the other way. I think we should avoid them at all costs. And in that moment right there, I didn't feel like we were going to be able to, but I felt like I at least wanted to try to avoid them for a while, to recollect ourselves. So I agreed, and we started wandering. We were completely directionless. We had no idea where we were. We were in that section that felt like it had more foot traffic, where it had the doors, it had the elevators, and we're wandering our way through it. And every once in a while, we would hear an elevator open in the distance, and we'd hear chatter and laughter of people that were coming down here for entertainment, going from the elevator to a door, very briefly, and we avoided them as best as we could. But this place had foot traffic, and it was so confusing to me that they would just come down into this local area of the elevator while there were still people like us wandering that were victims to the games. It felt irresponsible, but it also made it seem like these people were so confident that we couldn't do anything that it made us feel helpless. And outside of hearing these people wandering, we would also see people that seemed to be in our situation wandering around as well, but like in the distance. And we avoided them too. Just like that first dude with the suit and the Richard Mille, we saw people that they weren't in a good state. We saw one person with like a heavy limp, but like in the darkness, we didn't see what was actually wrong with them. We went a different direction. We saw one dude running away from something as we were coming to an intersection of a tunnel. He ran from right to left, no clothes on whatsoever, but in total fear. When we got up to that intersection, we saw that he wasn't looking back, he was only running. We looked in the direction in which he came. There was something over there. There was some type of setup. We decided to go into the direction that he ran, because he wasn't stopping, but we weren't trying to slow him down or talk to him. We just knew we didn't want to go where he came from, because even the look on his face from the side, we knew whatever that was horrible. We saw a man handcuffed very weird. His wrists were handcuffed behind his back, but his elbows were also handcuffed. So his arms were making some kind of like weird winged position. And he definitely didn't seem like he wanted any help. He saw us and went the other way. And we definitely saw one person wandering around with no senses whatsoever. They just walked past us. We didn't see them or hear them until we were close enough, so we couldn't avoid them. But they had that same feeling that the man at the first game had. There was no senses going on. He didn't even know we were there. He was just wandering, completely alone. We had no plan. We were completely reactive. And after what seemed like hours, which we don't know how much time is actually passing, we seemed to get out of that section that felt more hotel-like, lack of a better term. And we got to a section that seemed more industrialized. And we found ourselves going through tunnels that had grates as the floor in a lot of places. And we noticed that there was actually a lot of space going down, as if where we were wasn't the bottom. And we felt relieved getting away from the laughter of those people. It was a little bit more quiet where we were. There was less foot traffic, and we felt like we were making some progress getting far away from where we had entered. But eventually we got to this area that was almost rafter-like. Like it was still tunnel-like. But like I said, there's grates on the floor, and there's like some like carved out windows in the tunnels, and you could like look over, and it goes so far down, almost like we're in like a massive mine. And in most of the places, you can't see the bottom. It felt like we were in the rafters of a stadium, but we couldn't see the floor. And we're making our way around it, trying to go in like one general direction. Then we hear something. We hear some people speaking below. We hear what sounds to be like an altercation. Then we hear some of those hearty laughs, and then the lights turn on. And I realized that we're not just in an area that looks like rafters. We are in the rafters. It's not a massive stadium. The ground below us, where the light is illuminating, is only like 40 feet below us. But it's this small marble arena. Like it's like white marble. And the lights are shining on it. And around it, there's a couple black boxes. They were glass boxes. And the glass looked exactly like the back wall in that one room. And they were on like these pedestals around this marble arena area. And I can only assume that there were people inside of those glass boxes spectating on whatever was about to be happening. There was only like 5 of them. There wasn't commotion here. It didn't seem like people were having fun. The boxes weren't big enough for more than 2-3 people at most. And then we saw what it was about. 2 men stumble into the middle of this white marble area, and we hear something close behind them. But it's so dark down there, and the light is only hitting that white marble area. We can't see where they came from. We're just above them looking down, as if we're in the rafters of a show. And I look at Brock and I whisper, because I don't know who else is down there. this place is so much bigger than I thought. And he goes, we shouldn't stay here. I think I know what that is. I look at him and I look back down and I look back at him. And I'm looking at what this is. And then we hear a voice. It's like a quirky, cute anime style voice coming over some type of loudspeaker, speaking to the men that are down there. And in a quirky tone, it says, this is to the death, by the way, so don't stop like gentlemen. And the two men down there are looking at each other, both equally terrified. We can't tell if they know each other or if they don't. And I look at Brock and I'm like, we need to get out of here before we end up down there. And we look in all the directions and we decide to keep going in the direction in which we came. And we have to go through this one section that almost looks like one of like the box offices where the staff watches the games from. It's like a rafter tunnel that's very circular with a graded bottom, but then there's a section that's much more square. And we walk into this area and immediately we know we should have went the other way because it closes behind us and the left wall goes from black to transparent and we have a perfect view of what's happening below. We are stuck in this small makeshift room looking down at these men that have started to fight. It's not like they were professional fighters. It didn't seem as if they were ever in a situation like this. It was purely instinctual. They were just attacking each other in any way that they possibly could. It was sloppy, it was messy, it was horrifying. There were screams and pants and thuds, and I couldn't look away from it. It wasn't sport. It was horrific violence that escalates so quickly because the gentlemanness of fighting goes out of the window when you hear a voice like that. And the first person to scratch immediately escalates the fight. Then somebody's biting, then somebody's eye gouging, then they're pulling hair, going for all of the soft, vulnerable parts, not fighting by any rules, and it becomes horrific. And at that same moment this fight is going down, water starts coming into this room. I hear it first, but I can't take my eyes off of the fight, but then I feel it get to my ankles. The water's coming in fast. I look down at my feet, and then I look at Brock, who's also noticing the water pouring in, and he points towards the back wall. And in a very similar setup to that first game, there's stuff on the wall, and there's stuff written in chalk, clearly directed at us. And the first thing that I notice is the revolver hung on this wall by a hook, and right next to it is some kind of lever, kind of very similar to like a fire alarm that you would pull. But it was blue and just a lever. And in children's chalk under it, under the revolver specifically, it said, do a round of roulette and only risk yourself. And under the lever it said, pull the lever, take the ride, put everyone's life at risk. I don't think you understand the moral significance of what this game is implying. We have no idea what the lever is. We have no idea what the ride is. And it's saying, play a round of Russian roulette. That thing could be completely full. Who's to say that there's only one bullet in there? But this is only risking my life. But take the ride and risk everybody's life. That could mean anything. So it's like asking you to be selfish or selfless. It's asking you to only risk yourself, or do you believe that you could survive the ride, but maybe other people can't? It's like a moral dilemma, and it's in a pressure chamber, literally, because water is pouring in and now it's halfway up our shins. And while this is happening, we're hearing one man down below losing. The fight is going in one direction, and we're hearing someone scream in agony and like beg and plead, and the man that's winning is not stopping. He's not being a gentleman. And Brock is absolutely freaking out because it seems like the only way to play this game is to take the risk at Russian roulette morally before the water gets too high. Because it doesn't actually seem like what's happening downstairs is related to what's happening in our room. It seems like two separate things. I'm trying to look around to see if there's any way out of this, any like trick to it based on what just happened to us with the peanut allergy. Like, is somebody watching us? Is there a way around this? Are there different options? Is there some other choice we could choose to make some weirdo lose a bet, but this ends in a different way? Can we get this water to be released in any way? But at this point, Brock has the revolver in his hand and he's looking at me, and I could tell he is morally terrified because he's like, I'm not risking everybody's life. We don't know what that other lever is. Who knows the way this place punishes people if you're selfish? All of this is going through my head too. But he's like, dude, I can't pull that lever. I just can't. But I'm standing there looking at him, unable to focus because all I hear are the thuds from what's happening below us. They're deafening. I hear every blow landing on that man's face, and I hear the agony coming out of his mouth. Brock is completely consumed in what's happening in this room, rightfully so, but I hear orbitals breaking. I hear a face being disfigured. I hear a man being literally killed, and it's really hard for me to focus on what's happening here when something so violent is happening right below us. And I look out of this window and I could see directly down at it, and one man is winning. The other man is barely defending himself. He's not fighting back. The man isn't stopping. He's hitting him over and over and over again, and he's going to continue until he's dead. And Brock is like, dude, look at me. We can't play with other people's lives. And I see he's about to do his round of Russian roulette, but he needs to know that I'm going to do it too before he takes this risk. Because if he does it, and then I pull the lever, he shouldn't have even taken that risk. And he repeats himself. I'm not playing with other people's lives, but I walk towards him. And I could tell he kind of like holds the revolver to his chest because he thinks this is the right thing to do. But I don't feel like I'm playing with other people's lives. I feel like I'm saving someone's life. And the water in this room is almost at our hips at this point. And I walk right by him and I pull that lever down. And the water in our room stops momentarily. And I hear water flooding below us. And I make my way over back to that window and I look down and I see both fighters get washed away. And I see both of them are trying to swim. The arena below is completely flooded with water. And I see the man that was losing. At least he has a chance to survive. He was still conscious. And I felt like I made the right decision. And then the water started getting funneled back into our room. It was as if somebody set off 5 fire hoses, and literally before you knew it, the room was completely filled. I didn't even know you could pressurize water at that pace. We didn't even have 5 seconds before our room was completely full. And then I thought I made a mistake because I saved him, but I sacrificed ourselves. And I could see Brock freaking out. The water was fairly clear. We're trying to find a way out. He's kind of looking at me like, you killed us. You killed us. You did this. We at least had a chance. But then the back wall where the revolver was hung opened up like one of those false doors that those two slipped through. And we get forced out of the room and into what I now realize was the ride, because the entire place flooded. It wasn't just below. It wasn't just our room. Water was flooding every square inch of this tunnel system. The water was so high that even in the large tunnels, our heads were scraping the top of the tunnel, and we had to tilt our heads all the way up to get air. And I could only express how violent this water is by saying it felt as if it was going on for hours, but it also felt as if it was going on just for a couple minutes, because it was pure survival every single second. You were constantly put under the water. You were constantly trying to shimmy your way into the next tunnel. You had to hold your breath for long periods of time, 20, 30 seconds, till you popped out into another large tunnel, swim to the top, get a momentary breath before you bash into a pillar, bash into a wall, are violently thrashed into a different direction. It was constant torment and torture by the ferocity of this water. And the moment we were out of this room, I had no idea where Brock was. There's no way you could even comprehend somebody else's existence and safety in a situation like that. It was dark. We were separated immediately. Even if we were right next to each other, I would have no idea that he was there. That's how intense it was. You have to surrender to the fact that the only thing that matters is the next millisecond to make sure you have enough air and to make sure you don't get wedged in between a pillar in the wrong tunnel. You don't go through a really small crevice that you can't actually swim through, and it's completely loaded with water with no way to get to any larger tunnel. It is only survival over and over and over again. And as quickly as you are thrown into it, and as vicious as the process is, you're as quickly spat out into the bright light of the Nevada desert. And you're laying there looking up from complete darkness to now the entire world is illuminated, and you realize that you were in Las Vegas and it's all over, and you're looking around, spitting out water with about 40 bodies laying around you, half of them getting up, half of them coughing up water, the other half getting resuscitated by other people checking on them. And you realize that you survived the ride. But then you notice that the homeless people that live on the outskirts of the tunnel, right at the edges, they're walking around accusing people. They're very upset. Their homes and their belongings were just washed away for no reason. They don't go into the middle, but they know what the ride is, and they're saying who set off the ride. They're asking around. They're not very worried about all of the people that were spat out. They're pissed about it. I'm looking around and I see Brock. Thank God. He's coughing up water and he looks at me. I look at him. We hear a very violently angry homeless man who set off the ride. Me and Brock know that we did. We get up, we get close to each other, and we start walking away. Purely exhausted, but we had to get out of this area. And as we're soaking wet, fleeing the scene, fire trucks are arriving, ambulances are arriving. Clearly they weren't expecting this. They know about this situation. They know that people are going to be injured, and they're going to be injured right here, because this is where the tunnel system spits it all out apparently. They knew exactly where to come. We get as far away as we can and we look back to that entrance to the tunnel system. And we see one man standing at the opening of it, the one that we got spit out of. He's standing there and he's waving at us with a big grin on his face. We stop and we're like looking at him really closely as all the EMTs and firefighters are coming in, making sure everybody's okay. And it looks exactly like the man that was in that penthouse that sent us down there. But he wasn't wearing a suit. He had none of the accessories. He didn't look rich. He looked like one of the homeless men. He looked like somebody that we would have seen wandering around the tunnel. But even in the distance, I could see the contorted grin on his face. I asked Brock, is that him? Brock says it looks exactly like him. That's his twin. We had no interest in confronting him. We turned around and we got out of there. Whatever is happening in those casinos, in those hotels, nothing compares to what's happening below them. That's the real Sin City. If you enjoyed this video, YouTube thinks you would also enjoy this one.